Des from Aro-Tarot here, and I'm refilming this. Another video that I'm refilming. And as you can see from the title, this is about being agender. And it's very hard, so hopefully the camera doesn't die or anything before I can get through explaining it. Last time I think I spent like a little over 20 minutes just talking about it, like the journey, figuring it out, and all that stuff. Being agender, I feel like there's not as much to talk about compared to being ace and Aro. I don't feel like it really affects my life that much, since I just kind of have the whole, like, whatevs kind of thing going on. Yeah, I thought that I would kind of go ahead and finish off the trilogy of me and my orientations. So, ending it with the whole hardest one to explain of being agender. And just to say not what is necessary for me, but just in general, someone is agender and identifies as agender because they don't have a gender. Their gender is just neutral. They could go by agender then. They could also, I know one of the ways of saying it is that their gender is basically a void. That's another thing as well. So generally you hear it more so as the lack of gender. So that's how it is with me. I don't have a gender. So therefore I'm agender. And to basically also say that, I can also start this by saying also, as well, that I do not identify as trans or non-binary, although one that is agender could. Since being agender, there is a good portion. Agender is more so one of the ones that you don't necessarily have to see yourself or even identify with it, since it's not like our gender is, you know, non-binary, not bound by the binary. It's that we don't have one at all. So therefore we can opt out, which literally me. But one could identify as non-binary, and just like people that are non-binary can identify as trans, because transgender isn't literally identifying as the I've seen, like, recently I'm reading a book and it's talking about how transgender is identifying, and of course they're also adding the whole transitioning part as well, which is also not the case. Not everyone that's transgender, which is to necessarily freaking transition. I can't talk. But yes, it's not really opposite. It's more so when one does not identify with their assigned gender at birth. So people that are non-binary can, of course, identify as trans. So just kind of having that information out there. So, like, technically I could, but I do not, as well. And then I guess also to put it out there as well, pronouns. I know that probably the most common you'll see for people that are agender is probably going to be they, them. I don't identify as they, them. Instead, I identify as she, her, or he, him. Really don't care. There is a reason why I don't go by they, them for myself personally, which I will get into later. So that will be explained. Just let me get to the story part, okay? But yeah, so those are my pronouns. There's also other pronouns as well. I know of they, them, with the Z's. I know that is one as well. There's a few other ones that aren't as, you know, generally, like, they, them actually is and has been used in the English language for hundreds of years as a singular pronoun, although some people would like to see otherwise, say otherwise, but, yeah. So, of course, they, them is an appropriate pronoun. And then, of course, you know, the English language is always evolving. That's what language does. It evolves and it changes. Like, we didn't have the word internet or cell phone like 100 years ago. Those are new words that have been created to fit literally new things, new ideas. So obviously it makes sense why some people would have their own pronouns as well. But yeah, basically mine are just she, her, he, or he, him. I don't really care. Yeah. So anyway, I guess before like I just kind of get more so into the whole feeling and stuff, since I almost completely forgot, I'm going to just kind of almost share every time I film, if I'm shuffling a deck, fidgeting, what deck I'm currently shuffling, and I'm shuffling the Aro-Tarot still, so I'm filming this right after the soulmate video. And yeah, actually I had the one card on top. I'm really wanting to shuffle this one lately and just like cuddle with it, because I was missing a card and I thought that I might have lost it forever, and it turns out it was somehow stuck to the one other card, the thank you card, so much that I took the cards out together, looked at it, and I'm like, well, this is just a single card, so it's not in the box, I don't know where it is, and put it back in the box. And then later, when I was like, yeah, you know, it's not, wait a minute, it's too, you know, so of course I just really just want to hold this one right now, because that happened just 2 days ago. But yes, so anyway, the first kind of topic I'd written down, which I already talked about, I'm using my app to try to help me with all this as well, so I already did that one, so so basically what it's like feeling wise, and this is the part that is the hardest to talk about. Obviously genders that are just non-binary, agent, like all that stuff can be harder to explain for people. Even back when I feel like when I identified as non-binary it was a bit easier. I was definitely feeling masculine and feminine at times. So if one was to ask me, I probably would just say that. But not really necessarily knowing. I had other stuff on my plate. I was not worried about trying to figure out my gender then and there, you know. And then at a point, I'd also identified as a demi-boy, which is identifying as not entirely male. Usually you kind of see it as a mix of male and agender, essentially, kind of. It's usually what I see. Which is why actually the, if I remember correctly, the flag for demi-boy and demi-girl are similar to the agender flag, except for the one stripe is blue and then the one's pink, and then for like agender it's like a greenish color. But yeah, for me, agender, it's very interesting. People that aren't agender are not really going to understand it so much. Even just not necessarily understanding people that are non-binary. Like, if you were to take, I guess, like, my brother, for instance, like, someone that's trans, while they can understand and, like, accept and connect with the idea of, you know, not identifying with your assigned gender at birth, can't exactly, you know, identify with the whole it not being going with the whole binary. So it's a unique feeling and experience. And obviously it can feel a bit different for everyone. Kind of how when I was talking about being aromantic, it's kind of almost like its own thing for everyone. For me with agender, to put it simply, one could say, oh, you know, they could be trans or cis or whatever, you know, whatever their experience is, you know, in life, they could just be like, oh, well, you know, they'll be like, are you a boy or a girl? And they'll be like, oh, I'm a boy. You know, and then they go to the next person, they're like, are you a boy or a girl? And I'll be like, oh, well, I'm a girl. And then you go to, like, me, and they're like, are you a boy or a girl? And I'm like, no. Just, I'm Des. Like, and they'll be, you know, it's just, I don't see myself as a boy or a girl. I don't feel like a boy or a girl. So in that sense, someone that's not cis could at least understand, and the whole not feeling like you're assigned gender at birth. Do I feel like a girl? No, I don't feel like a girl. I don't feel like a guy. I haven't even felt anything masculine or feminine in years. I just really just feel like myself, honestly. Whenever someone's like, gender, it's like, nothing there, you know? Like, I don't feel anything there. It just, not there. Don't have one. And so that could be hard for people to understand. I feel like that's honestly the best way I could explain it. It's just when one's like, oh, well, I'm a girl, you know, or even if you want to have the whole masculine and feminine in there, you know, it's be like, well, I feel feminine. I feel like I'm masculine and feminine, you know? It's like, nope, nothing. You know, it's just, there's just nothing there. And so generally, I just kind of see myself as myself, and I just kind of do whatever I want, dress however I want, you know? Literally the only time I even say, androgynous anywhere with myself is generally when I'm talking about my hair, or I'm telling someone about, clothes, just because you're not really going to say, oh, I just want my hair, that's me. You know, my haircuts generally I have to describe as masculine or androgynous, because how people cut hair and see hair, and the different styles, everyone's like, oh, well, girls get their hair cut like this, and specifically cut like this, and guys get like this, and more an androgynous look could be like this. So I'm kind of stuck with that kind of saying. And then, of course, when you have more neutral clothing, most people say androgynous, which androgynous is actually the combination of masculine and feminine. So it's neutral, but more in the sense of being a mix, being a both, not there being nothing. So generally I prefer to not really see anything I do as androgynous, just because the definition of word that I've seen doesn't really necessarily fit. But if one was to ask and I had to explain, I guess I would say it as that. But generally with clothes or something, it's like, I don't know, I like the shirt, so I'm wearing it. You know, like, I just prefer, or I usually will sometimes say neutral, like, a more neutral look. I just kind of wear what's comfortable and what I like. So, yeah. Like, this jacket is, this was in the girls section, but I don't care. It's cute. Like, this shirt's unisex. Do I care? No, it's cute. Well, it's not cute, it's cool. It's my favorite band. I just don't really care. It's the same with pronouns. I just don't really care. And I guess I could go ahead and go to that last point that I was going to talk about at the end. So then, Des, what about dysphoria? There are a certain group of people, they're assholes, that think that one has to experience dysphoria to actually be trans or non-binary, anything and such, which is completely untrue. You don't have to necessarily experience, you know, crippling dysphoria to not identify as the gender that you were assigned with birth. I don't know if I would necessarily get it now, because I'm just really comfortable with myself now. Literally figuring out that I was Aro and Agender actually got rid of any dysphoria that I had in the past, which was mostly actually just about body weight. I just, you know, constantly, you know, more so a relative picking on me because of weight. I very much did not like my weight. And now that I know that I'm Aro and Agender, well, it's like, I literally, it's not like I even date people. Why would I care if they think I'm hot or not? You know, like, they can fuck off. So I'm actually much more comfortable with myself than I ever have been, and it kind of just keeps getting better. But mostly afterwards, it was more so hair. I like my hair short, and so when it starts growing out, it feels uncomfortable. More so then than now. Now I feel like I'm just feeling uncomfortable because it's weird having hair touching my neck. You know, then it's like, what is this touching? You know, it's touching my neck. That's, you know, it just feel, you know, like anyone that has their hair short and then it starts growing out, you know, it's just touching your neck and it's just like, what is happening? So I feel like it's more so that than anything like actually, you know, dysphoric. So I don't really experience dysphoria, and you don't have to experience dysphoria necessarily to be non-binary or trans or anything like that. And then even people that do experience dysphoria, literally people experience it differently and more intensely than others. So, yeah, do I? No, not really. If anything, it's actually helped me to feel more comfortable in my skin. So, had a bit of an opposite effect. But yeah, so anyway, I guess now would be the time. Man, my hair just keeps wanting to do that. It's annoying me. Now would be, I guess, the time of just talking about the journey of me figuring out that I was agender. So, yeah, I guess it would start, well, I guess in childhood, I was always the tomboy, you know, kind of kid. It wasn't really sports, but just with dolls, I played with them more so how one would probably play with action figures. Because the stories, it was very much just all about storytelling, which you could do with dolls anyway, although the storytelling was always these epic tales of, like, superheroes, and they have powers, and there's always, like, fighting the good against evil, which one would probably associate more with action figures than dolls, and I did the same thing with action figures, too. I also very much liked, ninja movies. That was something that I always did with my dad, and I guess kind of just hanging out with my dad as a kid, you know, just had an influence on me. And I've just kind of always kind of liked the things that I like, you know, as well. So I was kind of like a little bit of a tomboy. And honestly, growing up, especially in middle school and high school, well, not really necessarily middle school. I feel like middle school is more of a joke, really. It was more so high school, which is funny because that's when it started to see that I wasn't cis, but I completely ignored it, and I was basically like a feminazi, but you know, man-hating woman kind of thing going on. I did not like guys. I saw them completely beneath women, and yeah, not like that anymore. Not after I realized that I was not cis. Feel like that probably might have had something to do with it. But in freshman year, I know one thing to explain with it is I've never remembered any of my dreams, like, ever. I've never remembered a dream ever in my entire life. However, sometimes, and it's more prevalent now, I will wake up and I'm still essentially dreaming. And yeah, and then eventually, you know, I just keep waking up more and then I'm awake. And that's the closest to dreaming I have. And so, it was probably 9th grade. I had one or two of those. I think probably one earlier in the year and one later. Where in this, like, dream-like, half-awake kind of thing, because I am conscious, but yet things just happen. So I'm not in complete control, you know, eventually you start to get more control, but at the same time it starts fading. And in it, it was basically kind of like school. It was the same school, I was in the same classroom, and that's why I'm pretty sure it was freshman year, because I remember being in specifically my homeroom that I had in freshman year. And in it, instead of being assigned female at birth, I was assigned male at birth. And I had this huge crush on this really cute girl in my class. And it was interesting because it didn't feel odd at all for me to be assigned male at birth in this dreamlike scenario, or for me to think that this one girl is so freaking pretty and she's like walking by me and I'm like blushing because she's just so gorgeous. If anything, it just felt like it was me, you know? It just felt me. I just looked different, you know? But obviously that did not go with my ideas at the time, which were very wrong. And so I completely ignored it and shoved it aside. Like, no, that was just a dream-like thing. It doesn't matter, you know? So then when I got to campus, my brother came out. My roommate also was, well, they went by genderqueer. And then eventually I had my one other friend, and I want to say it was after they came out as gender fluid, and I think before they realized they were trans. I think it was in between that month space was when I started to realize that I wasn't cis either. You know, it's very much that thing where you really are more likely to figure out that you're not cis or straight if you're hanging out with the people that aren't cis or straight, because then it's not, you know, society kind of just heteronormity, essentially. You know, just automatically the assumption is that everyone's straight, you know? And then when you're around people that aren't, you know, you start to actually think about stuff and realize, huh, I'm not, you know? And that was essentially the case. You know, I'm just around these people that aren't cis, and I'm like, you know, just sitting there, just honestly feeling a bit masculine. Because early on I didn't really feel feminine, really, ever. I would just sometimes feel kind of masculine, which is why I thought I was, which for all I know, I could have been demi-boy, because gender does actually, it is fluiding, and it can change over time. I mean, literally, there are people that identify as gender fluid because, you know, it happens more than you know, like, obviously, other people could naturally experience. But gender can change over time. You know, it's just fluid like that. Just don't use that knowledge as an excuse to bully people and say, you know, that it's just a phase or something. Because, fuck off. But, yeah, so I'm just sitting there, and all of this going on around me made me think back to those few times where I was waking up from a dream in which I was assigned male at birth, and yet at the same time it really still felt like myself, like nothing had really changed. If anything, I was just cuter. But yeah, it just felt normal, and then I just started thinking, you know, and I'm just sitting there like, huh. Wait, I'm not cis. You know, it kind of, it was more like a ding, like, huh? I'm not cis either. I just, you know, kind of just have been ignoring it this whole time. So yeah, then for a while, I was going by non-binary, which literally, like, my friend, like, that later came out as trans, I was like, thank you. Like, literally, like, you were the final piece. the final piece of the puzzle that got me enough to actually think about it and realize that I wasn't cis either. So, like, thank you, my friend. And then, of course, like, I told, like, my friends and stuff. Of course, like, at the same time with it, I was just very nonchalant. It's never really affected my life, like, being ace, and especially Aro has. Being Aro has very much influenced my life. That's why the Aro video is, like, I think it's almost 48 minutes long. And then the ace one's, like, what, like, 25? And this one I know is not going to be, like, 40-something minutes long. But yeah, then after that, I was dealing with the whole realizing that I was Aro, and then eventually after that was all good, and I was finally comfortable, I finally decided to think and maybe look into what my gender is. So I was looking, and I was like, well, demi-boy seems to fit because of the masculine I was feeling. So I think maybe about a month I went by that, and then, like, if any masculine feeling I was feeling, it just completely faded. I hadn't felt it in, like, a long time. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm just agender, which I heard's not, like, uncommon for people that are Aro ace. So I've got all the letter A's. The A's belong to me, and everyone like me. So yeah, I decided to go by agender, and like I said, I literally don't feel masculine or feminine ever. Which, literally, I think that's the only thing that annoys me, is when people just kind of say, oh, well, everyone's masculine and feminine. It's like, buddy. No, like, that's really the only thing that ever bothers me, like, personally me. And then I know, like, other people don't like it either. So, yeah, usually if I get mad about something when it deals with non-binary trans people, I'm not really getting mad necessarily for myself. Like, I'm getting mad, obviously, because, like, you're invalidating me. But at the same time, I'm getting mad for everyone else that you're essentially invalidating too. Like, are you basically saying, like, my friends, you know, like, my family, like, none of it's real, like, well, fuck you. You know, like, I'm getting mad for them. As well as myself. More so probably for them, you know. I mean, I literally am the older sibling. So I gotta protect my young bro, you know. That's always how it is, you know. I got the whole, I feel very protective at times. Like, I remember literally my one friend that I had a really hard squish and was really aesthetically attracted to him. I was like, oh my god, I don't want anyone to hurt you ever, like, I will fist fight someone for you. You know, like, literally, like, you're older than me, you're like, what, 2 years older than me, and you are way taller than me, but you know what, I will fist fight someone for you. As long as they hit me first. Because otherwise, it's just gonna be verbal fighting. Because I don't like getting in trouble. But you know what? For you. You know, yeah, so that's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else to add. That was pretty much all I was gonna say. And hey, I leveled up, and I got a potion. Nice. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. About just me being agender. So I think this is probably about as long as the ace one, which isn't bad considering. Honestly, trying to explain your agender or non-binary to someone that's not agender or non-binary can be very hard. So, yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Anyone literally, I'm always open to, like, answering questions. As long as the questions aren't, you know, from someone being an asshole. Like, that's always the thing, like, don't be an asshole. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and go now. And just kind of just take the videos, edit them, and post them. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just from Aro-Tarot, and I guess I am logging off. So,